The acrid smell of plasma filled my nostrils as I hunkered down into a blasted-out crater. Another wave of their dropships shrieked across the blood-orange sky. Even at this distance, I could see the ghastly glow of energy weapons crackling beneath their undersides. We were toast. Outnumbered, outgunned, and now caught hopelessly out in the open. My men were already starting to crack. The rookies, fresh meat to the grinder, had all the composure of rabbits cornered by a wolf. Can't exactly blame them. The only cover for a kilometer was this hole I was now calling home. Sergeant Harris, a grizzled veteran whose calloused hand could crush a rock, crouched across from me. A gash ran jagged down his cheek. He blinked the blood from his eye. Lieutenant, with all due respect, if we don't hoof it back toward HQ, we ain't seeing tomorrow's sunrise, let alone getting reinforcements. I didn't want to admit it, but he was right. Yet, something stubborn and foolish wouldn't let me cut and run. The brass had sent our platoon, 40 good men and women, to hold this crossroads till the cavalry arrived. And hold it we would, until there was nothing left to hold. We were Earth's finest, the last firewall, and we wouldn't break without taking a hell of a lot of those alien scum down with us. Harris, I rasped over the comms, get a count. I want to know how much fight we have left. He nodded, his gaze flicking across what remained of our squad. Within minutes, the reports crackled back, 16 walking wounded, half our original force. My stomach lurched. We'd taken hits, but nothing that should have left us this decimated. These weren't the hit-and-run tactics of guerrilla warfare, their strategy was relentless, merciless. A sickening conclusion wormed its way into my mind, they weren't just trying to win a battle, they wanted annihilation. Harris, I muttered, think they're trying to test us? Test us for what, sir? Our capacity for dying? Harris spat blood onto the scorched ground. Don't think we're failing that one. No, I admitted, my voice thick, maybe they're testing themselves. Seeing how far they can push before we break. Trying to size up our firepower, our tactics, our will. A low rumble rippled across the wasteland. Our sensors hadn't picked them up, but my bones felt it. We weren't dealing with scouts, or even a strike force. This vibration screamed one thing, heavy armor. Tanks, or something worse. Suddenly, Harris' comms unit squawked. Control, their voice a brittle mixture of desperation and awe. Lieutenant Tanaka, new bogies inbound. You've never seen anything like this. I closed my eyes. Like this indeed. The earth shook as the first behemoth crested the horizon. Even from half a click out, it was monstrous. Four-legged, plated in a hide no tank round could scratch. Twin energy cannons perched on its elongated head, glowing with the promise of obliteration. Beside me, a recruit with eyes too wide whispered, "What in God's name is that?" I had no answer for him. There are moments when you know the rules have changed, the game's been upended. This was one of them. Humans had mastered warfare among ourselves, perfected the art of killing with chilling efficiency. We thought that made us prepared for any fight. Guess we thought wrong. The creature lowered its cannons, their eerie hum building to a scream, and my defiance dwindled to a cold, hard knot in my gut. This wasn't a battle anymore. This was a massacre. Harris, get word out, fall back, I yelled, despair roughening my voice. We can't hold here, we need to buy time. A flash of defiance sparked in Harris' eyes. Buy time for what, sir? A miracle? I didn't have a good answer. But hey, when facing impossible odds, the only thing left is to trade your life dearly and hope somehow, some way, it's enough to tip the scales. My hand moved to the detonator clenched in my fist. Our sappers had rigged this stretch with just enough explosives to hurt something big, never imagining how big. A last-ditch gambit, a roar of defiance before the end. Sir. A comms tech shrieked, HQ on the horn, urgent. I snatched the receiver. This is Tanaka, what's the word? Control didn't reply at first. All I heard was a gasp, swallowed by static. Then, a voice, shaky but resolute, came through. Lieutenant, we're calling a general pullback. All units to fall back, all units retreat. I repeat, full retreat. Full retreat? I echoed, the words surreal. Full retreat? When we were the final line. Sir, you won't believe this. Our perimeter satellites, they've got an eye on their homeworld. Lieutenant, they're glassing their own cities. A wave of shock nearly knocked me off my feet. Glassing? Orbital bombardment on your own kind? I fumbled for words, for any sense in this suicidal insanity. Then it hit me. The relentless drive, the disregard for causalities, the creatures they unleashed, it wasn't a test at all. It was a purge. These weren't conquerors, they were refugees. Not an invading army, but the desperate survivors of some cataclysm, some threat back home so dire, they'd burn their own planet to ash behind them. They weren't here to break us, they were here to break whatever was chasing them. A terrible understanding dawned, twisting my victory roar into a curse. They'd known we weren't a pushover. Our tech, primitive by their standards, was still generations beyond what some backwater world could cobble together. We were advanced, organized, and when cornered, ferocious. The message to whatever lurked in the shadows of space was clear: Earth may not win, but you'll bleed for every damn inch. We'd been maneuvered. Not outwitted on the battlefield, but weaponized in the cosmic arena. Maybe this desperate exodus wasn't headed our way in search of a new home at all. Maybe they were fleeing toward us hoping we were the nightmare their pursuers feared. The order changed everything. Now, it wasn't about survival, it was about proving these aliens right. Buying them, and ourselves, whatever slim chance this insane gamble offered. I turned to Harris, who was staring at me, the horror of the situation dawning on his face. Before he could protest, I raised the detonator and keyed the code. "Lieutenant, wait." "We wait," I replied, my voice raspy. My eyes scanned the horizon, where those lumbering behemoths slowly advanced. Our makeshift bomb wouldn't destroy them, but it might just cripple them enough to give these fleeing bastards a head start. We wait till they're close enough that the only thing outrunning the shockwave is the message we just sent hurtling into the stars. With a flick of my thumb, the world detonated. They called it the roar. One blast, a ripple of fury echoing across the wasteland, shredding the invading force. I survived, because when you spend a lifetime prepping for the apocalypse, you get good at finding holes. Still, when I emerged from beneath the rubble, dazed and deafened, the world didn't look the same. Twisted metal littered the ground where alien juggernauts once lumbered, their legs mangled, armor plates buckled. And among the smoking wreckage, those towering, plated bodies, lifeless. Whether it was the blast or something built into the creatures themselves, a final failsafe triggered in defeat, I couldn't tell. But one thing was clear, we did it. We sent the message. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. A surge of pride, bitter and bloody, flared in my chest. There was no time for celebration. The retreat order didn't mean safety, just a shift in strategy. We patched up the wounded, abandoned what we couldn't carry, and moved out, a ragtag remnant of a platoon. I knew the world had changed. Every blip on the horizon could be a friend or another wave of the enemy. Yet, there was a strange shift in the air, something hesitant. Weeks bled into months as we retreated deeper into familiar territory. Word trickled down from command. Similar stands across the globe had crippled the initial wave. Whatever those fleeing aliens brought, it was stronger than they anticipated. Now, instead of a blitzkrieg, there was a stalemate. They were out there, holding position, but not advancing. Were they reeling, licking their wounds? Were they even alive? We had no way of knowing. Months ground on. We became ghosts, surviving on scavenged tech and sheer grit. Supplies had been abandoned in the chaos of retreat. We lived on the scraps of civilization, while overhead, even our satellites had fallen eerily silent. It was maddening to fight an invisible enemy, but we hadn't been broken. We were a thorn in their side, proof that their desperate gambit may have backfired spectacularly. Then, a year into this new normal, it happened. Harris and I were scouting the ruins of a coastal town, the stink of rot a constant companion in the salt-heavy air. I motioned him to hold as I scanned the debris for anything usable. That's when I saw it. Not alien in design, but a piece of our tech, a battered drone, half buried in the sand. It should have been dead, but a faint power indicator flickered. Back at our makeshift camp, hidden within a cave network, I cobbled together a connection. The drone's memory banks were damaged, but usable. I felt a chill as the fragmented images sputtered to life. Not a battlefield, not another world, this was the interior of one of their ships. I had a direct feed into the lion's den. The first thing I noticed was the bodies. Not soldiers, but civilians. Emaciated, scarred, their eyes filled with a terror that went far deeper than the fear of war. Disease? Famine? Something on their homeworld had ravaged them even before they turned their desperation toward us. The images flickered. The next were brutal, their own kind, but garbed differently, wielding weapons that glowed an ominous purple. Dissidents? A rival faction? The fight spilled across the ship, as vicious as it was futile. The civilians were caught in the crossfire, collapsing with terrible, spreading burns. This was an internal war, a coup, and judging by how close the fight was to the bridge, it was one the refugees were losing. "We made the call for them," Harris whispered, a haunted look in his eyes. We had become the boogeymen of their nightmares, the monstrous threat they needed to unify a fractured, dying world. We had a choice. Push the advantage, expose this split to the world, or wait it out, hope the fracture was irreparable enough to keep them pinned down. Every instinct begged for the former, hit them while they were down. But a different voice whispered at the edge of my awareness. We were soldiers, not savages. And these weren't just our enemies any longer. They were a broken mirror held up against our own potential, the dark path humanity could walk if pushed to the brink. We'd proven our strength, now we had to prove there was still something inside us worth fighting for. With a sigh, I killed the transmission. Harris raised an eyebrow, the unasked question burning in his gaze. We walk away, Harris, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. We leave them to their civil war, let both sides bleed themselves out. And if they make peace, regroup? If they come back stronger? Then we fight them again. And again. Because that's what soldiers do. But we're not going to slaughter the dying just to make that fight a little easier. Hope is a fragile thing in a broken world. Yet, watching the alien fleet dwindle over the next year, not retreating in defeat but limping back toward their own blighted star, I held on to it fiercely. The roar of our defiance wasn't the battle cry of a conquering army, but the howl of a wounded beast, a testament to the enduring, if sometimes foolish, heart of humanity. The war wasn't over. There are threats lurking at the edge of the known universe, shadows we may never fully comprehend. And as a soldier, as part of something greater than myself, I'll be there on the front lines when they come. Earth might be bloodied, scarred, and forever changed, but we learned our lesson well. We're not the rulers of the stars, not invincible, but we are damn sure survivors. And that's worth shouting about. 20 years. 2 decades of uneasy quiet settled over Earth. The scars of that first brutal contact remained, but life found its way. Cities were rebuilt, smaller and fortified, a testament to our hard-won wisdom. The world wasn't what it was, but the lingering alien threat had united humanity in a way war and disaster never could. I wasn't a frontline soldier anymore. The years and the battles had taken their toll. Now, I was an instructor, shaping green recruits into the hardened protectors this uneasy peace demanded. Every session ended the same way, sharing the footage from that wrecked drone, their civil war, our choice to walk away. It was supposed to be a lesson in strategy, in the complexities of war, in demonstrating how even victory comes at a cost. At least, that's what I told myself. Then, that damn day came. Not an invasion, not even a warning. A probe slipped through our defenses, a ghost on the sensors, transmitting on a frequency we used for deep space research. When we finally cracked the signal, the message was simple, stark, delivered in a garbled but recognizable form of English. We have won. Chaos reigned. Those in power, who'd hoped the aliens would eventually vanish into the void, were paralyzed. But those of us who'd bled on the front lines, we knew. It wasn't a declaration of victory. It was a desperate plea. See, the thing about staring into the abyss is that it eventually stares back. The shadows that drove the aliens towards us, whatever horrors lurked out there, hadn't been defeated, hadn't simply vanished. The enemy of our enemy wasn't the friend we'd hoped for, but the next nightmare waiting in the wings. The survivors of their internal war had united, yes, but not with renewed hope. They'd rallied under the banner of pure, terrifying desperation. We scrambled. I was pulled from my quiet life, a dinosaur given a last chance to roar. Our tech had leapt forward, what once passed for advanced was now laughable. Our weapons could vaporize a city, our ships had shielding that could shrug off blasts that leveled those first behemoths. But was it enough? We had no clue what those pursuing shadows were capable of. The aliens were the canaries in the coal mine, and they were screaming their lungs out. The first wave hit our outer colonies. We'd always feared a return of the aliens, never imagined what they'd become, augmented, twisted, wielding a power that made our orbital cannons seem like firecrackers. It wasn't war anymore, it was extermination, not for conquest but because we dared stand in their way. The aliens were now a vector, their ravaged home a staging ground for something far, far worse. Then came the plot twist that turned the knife. It wasn't a direct attack on Earth. No, these shadowy bastards were smarter than that. They struck at our unity, our lifeline in the stars. They targeted the FTL relays. Our tech wasn't their match, but it was close enough for them to twist it. With a coordinated strike of horrific precision, they turned every relay in the outer systems into a bomb, tearing holes in reality itself. Colonies winked out of existence. Fleets trying to help went silent, lost in the shifting gaps between dimensions. We were an island now, cut off not by distance, but by the warped fabric of space. Isolated, left to face the coming storm alone. This was why they'd let us advance, waited for us to become reliant on the relays, spreading ourselves thin. And we'd walked right into it, just as the aliens did with their gamble against us. Backed into a corner, humanity did what it does best, dig in our heels and prepare to fight like hell. But this time, we have a ghost of a chance. This time, the message we sent hurtling into the stars decades ago, the echo of our defiance, might be our only salvation. Because the aliens are coming, scarred and warped by whatever horrors they fled. They're bringing a war we may not survive. Yet somewhere out there, those survivors, broken, desperate, and as ruthless as ourselves, might still remember the world that wouldn't kneel, the roar that shook their foundations. And if that roar sent the shadows scurrying, maybe, just maybe, it can draw out the tattered remnants of a shattered species. A shot in dark, yes, a fool's hope maybe, but hope is all we have left. I'm putting the footage of their civil war on repeat in every barracks on Earth, not as a history lesson anymore, but as a recruitment video. It's time to remind everyone, alien and human alike, that even monsters sometimes need a helping hand when facing a bigger, badder devil. This isn't a fight for territory or survival alone. It's a fight for the damned right to choose our own fate, to make the call ourselves, the final roar in the face of ultimate darkness. They called it the Twilight War. It was a time of brutal sieges of fortified cities, guerrilla strikes deep behind enemy lines, and desperate gambits to reclaim those twisted relays, the only chance to pierce the veil and reforge our fragmented defenses. We fought tooth and nail, bled from 1,000 cuts, but for every world that fell, 3 more held firm. Earth, that bloodied but defiant little rock, was a fortress, proving humanity was an infection more resilient than any that had ravaged the aliens. We learned quickly, adaptation was in our blood. Their twisted tech, the augmentations that warped the very flesh of their soldiers, became the puzzle we obsessed over, the key to unraveling. It was a race, weaponize their strengths before they mastered our weaknesses. Then came the whispers on the wind, a rumor carried by ragged smugglers, by intercepted transmissions in languages no human could ever master. The aliens were changing again. They were pulling back, not retreating, but concentrating their forces. Our victories, costly as they were, had done more than hold them at bay. They had sent a new message out into the void. Whatever these shadows were, they feared even the specter of our alliance with the wretched survivors we once spared. The alien dreadnoughts appeared with no warning. Hulking monstrosities, unlike the fleets of old, they bypassed the colonies, ignored the relay fragments. They made a beeline for Earth. No more feints, no more testing the waters, just a death sentence delivered at warp speed. Every ship in our scattered fleet rallied, a desperate swarm against the Goliaths. Our battles had bought time, but not nearly enough. I was back on the front lines when it happened. My body may have been weathered, but my spirit was still tempered in the forge of the initial invasion. We braced, gave them hell, and then nothing. The alien ships halted short of Earth's orbit, holding position in an ominous standoff. No hails, no surrender demands, just a chilling silence. Weeks stretched into a tense eternity. Every strategist on Earth, and judging by their panicked chatter, every alien commander too, was scrambling to unravel this play. Then the signal came. Not from the behemoths, but from the furthest reaches of our star system, a distorted transmission on frequencies long abandoned. I'll never forget the chill that ran down my spine when I recognized the voice, that broken English strained and raw. We have come. The first wave of alien ships wasn't an invasion force, it was a tattered vanguard, refugees fleeing their conquerors. Their weaponry still bristled, but the energy hum felt muted, tentative. They weren't here to fight, they were here to beg. For those who remembered the footage, those haunted by echoes of the civil war that started it all, it was a chilling vindication of our darkest choice. Then they came. The shadows, seeping out of the warped relay rifts on the edges of our system. Not ships, but tendrils of inky void. Our weapons glanced off them uselessly, as if we were swatting at smoke. These were no twisted aliens, nothing even the most desperate scientist could warp into a killing machine. These were something, elemental, a force as indifferent to us as an avalanche is to an ant. The alien dreadnoughts, once the terror of the stars, turned broadside to the new threat. Their weapons spat beams of annihilation, not at us, but at the creeping darkness. It felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. The shadows recoiled, lashed out. Each clash erupted in a blinding flash, a surge so intense it overrode our systems, leaving us helpless witnesses to the titanic struggle. It was then I knew, victory or defeat, this was the true war, the one we played a part in setting in motion. Humanity, the battered aliens, we were pawns on a far grander, far more terrifying chessboard. The battle between the shadows and the warped remnants of an alien world, it rages still. I'm too old for the front lines now. My bones creak, and these new enemies, these shifting voids, don't play by rules my tired mind can grasp. I leave the strategy to younger, sharper minds. But I still serve. I broadcast that same damn footage into every corner of Earth, onto every cobbled together ship those aliens call allies. Not for history's sake, not anymore. We play it on loop, because with each flash of their civil war, with every echoing scream in their dying world's tongue, is the stark reminder of why we fight. This war is not about territory. It's not about vengeance, or even survival, not in the truest sense. It's about reminding anyone who'll listen, human, alien, or the unfathomable terrors lurking behind it all, that even when faced with the impossible odds, with the monstrous abyss at your door, the choice remains. The choice to walk away, or the choice to stand and spit in the face of the inevitable end. That's the roar echoing across the stars, the last and loudest message of a defiant, doomed species. Years turn into a blur. This isn't war anymore, it's an apocalyptic way of life. Our gleaming cities are battle-scarred fortresses. Humans with alien tech grafted onto their bodies stride beside those twisted survivors, a grotesque testament to our desperate pact. Every day is a relentless gamble. Hold a colony, lose one twice the size. Break a relay rift, only for 3 more to hemorrhage open like wounds in the cosmic fabric. The shadows advance, a relentless tide of nothing. Our only victories feel like delaying the inevitable. Yet, somehow, the line holds. There's a pattern to the shadows, a chilling logic to their movements we've only begun to decipher. There's a reason they linger, consuming worlds at a glacial pace. Whatever it is, the aliens, warped as they are, understand it. They fight like dying animals, not with hope of a future, but with the sole intent to buy time. Time for what? I fear we don't have long to find out. I'm relegated to Command HQ now, a relic of another age hunched over the holographic star charts. Every blinking light is a world hanging by a thread. We hold a shrinking perimeter, but Earth, the damned cradle of our defiance, remains untouched. Is it tactical brilliance, or something more twisted? Why do the shadows dance around us? Then, the unthinkable happens. It's not a battle, nor an alien gambit. Earth's defenses go rogue. Our missiles turn towards the heavens, our satellites malfunction like clockwork gone mad. There's no trace of enemy hacking, no sabotage. It's as if the planet itself has rejected us. Panic explodes like wildfire. Evacuation orders go out, unanswered because half the fleet is pinned down by shadow incursions. Aliens, the few trusted enough to be in the war room, are eyeing us with suspicion. And then, when chaos and accusations threaten to swallow us whole, the broadcasts begin. It's not a voice, but a symphony of whispers, a chorus of the lost echoing through every communication channel known to man and across alien bands we barely understand. Images flicker beneath the static, cities not of human or alien design, vast and desolate. Structures older than any relic we've ever found on 1,000 worlds. The shadows, the true enemy, they aren't conquerors. They're wardens, jailers. Whatever horror they battled with the aliens, they locked it away, and Earth, our defiance, our stubborn will to survive, it's the rattling of the cell door. The transmission dies, leaving a buzzing silence more terrifying than any orbital bombardment. And as the first shadow tendrils creep around the outer reaches of the Sol system, I finally understand. The alien dreadnoughts, once the bane of our existence, now form a desperate perimeter. We are the beacon now, not of salvation, but of damnation unleashed. My hand hovers over the self-destruct for Earth's core, a failsafe put in place in the early, optimistic days of this alliance. We thought the threat lurked among the stars, never under our own damned feet. The choice was always there, lurking in the fallout of our own survival. Do we take our world down with us, deny the shadows their prize? Or do we defy death a little longer, spit in the face of the cosmic curse we helped bring down upon ourselves? Either way, the roar will shake the heavens. Now, it's just a matter of whether it's a battle cry, or a dying scream.